I'd like to call this special meeting of East Palestine City School District Board of Education to order. Please stand for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please call the roll.
Mrs. Andre.
Here.
Mr. Ginder.
Here.
Mr. Lambert.
Here.
Mr. Moore.
Here.
Mr. Novak.
Here. Next on our agenda is recognition of retirees.
Thanks, Doug. We have two special awards this evening. In this time of lack of normalcy, it's nice to be able to get back to one of our traditions here in East Palestine, and that is recognizing our retirees. Only one was able to be with us tonight. The second one actually is at military training, believe it or not. Retired in one of his first weeks out. He was called into his yearly military training. So, but I do want to recognize, we'll recognize both, but we'll start with Eileen Foley. Eileen's been with the school district since 1986. Eileen served a variety of different roles as a classified staff member. So Eileen, we'd like to thank you for your years of service here for the district. Our second retiree this evening is Jim Young. Jim's been with the district actually since 1990. He started coaching with us, started teaching in the district in 1992. And again, as we were going through the list, and I won't run down the myriad, but Jim's coached just about everything that we have to offer here. He did retire from teaching, but is actually still coaching for us. Jim's still coaching middle school football for us, and I would assume he'll be doing track for us in the spring, depending on what the spring looks like. So we just take a minute to honor James, Mr. Young as well. So thank you.
Next on the agenda is the work session.
All right, so good thing tonight you won't have to listen to me too much. I'm going to give most of my work session over to our Children's Hospital rep that's with us tonight, but I do have just a couple things I want to touch on real quickly. Obviously, the big item in front of us is the opening of school. Opening of school went very well. We spent the last 6 months, I use the word dreading, coming back to school and exactly what that was going to look like with all these different mitigation strategies and all the things we put in place. And happy to say that the opening of school did go very well. We're servicing about 28% of our students in the district on our Bulldog Online Academy. And we're servicing about 72% of our students face-to-face instruction 5 days a week. Both of those, a couple bumps in the road, but nothing major. So I would say that our plan that we put in place is running smoothly. We're dealing with those issues that we have in front of us. One of the big things, really two of the big things with our online academy. One is just tech issues, which again, we would expect to deal with those tech issues. We are working on putting together a help desk for our outside students, our remote learners. We have one here within the district, so we're working on modifying that. And the second is just dealing with students with disabilities that are online. Students with disabilities are put on individual education plans for a reason, and each one has their own individual piece. So that's taken a little bit of time for us to get those things ironed out, but we are in the process. That's a daily battle for us to make sure that we get those things taken care of. So we are working on that. So another big thing that just happened within the last week, the USDA meal waiver was extended to December 31st. We put that information out as soon as we got it. It was first recognized at the state level of August 31st. We found out about it on the September 1st. We got confirmation on the 2nd and actually got it started on the 2nd. So we are feeding all the kids in the district based on that USDA waiver, free meals both here face-to-face and our students that are remote learners. We have a system set up for them to come in on Mondays and pick up meals. We're averaging, I think it's 26, 28 kids, something like that a week coming in to pick up meals right this minute. And I expect as they get more comfortable with the system, we'll see that number rise. So, but just so everybody's aware of that, that was extended till December 31st. And we'll continue to utilize that. So our district restart plan, currently we're working under our tier 1 system. That's face-to-face 5 days with the Bulldog Online option. If you remember that 16-page plan that we went over 2 months ago at this point now, there's a tier 2 and a tier 3 to that as well. Tier 2 would be our hybrid, where kids would be here 2 days a week, at home 3 days a week. And tier 3 would be our complete remote, which is similar to where we were last spring. We worked all of the little things out with that. We're ready to go with those. Hopefully we won't need them, knock on wood. But if we do, I think we've got everything in place. The only thing that we're waiting on, and it's probably our biggest roadblock as a district right now, is technology. We have about 250, I think. And I believe we have 250 computers that are back ordered right now. We ordered back in May. Still are not here. So it caused us to have to dismantle some of our computer carts and stuff here in the district so that we can get computers to people that are out in our Bulldog Academy. So we're still waiting on those. And we have some other computers that we're going to be ordering due to a grant that we just got. And I'll talk about that in a few minutes. So we would like to practice our tier 2 and tier 3. Without the technology, doesn't seem to make a whole lot of sense. So right now, our target is the first week of November to practice that, to go to that hybrid schedule. Parents already know where their kids are in that. Their brown and their white groups that they were assigned is how we would go to the hybrid system if we had to. That's how we started school. That Monday and Tuesday, we separated kids based on their groups. We have a calendar completely done that we will share with parents. As soon as we look at getting these things out. But on a Thursday, which is when we would find out the information, it would happen probably that fast. Where we would find out on Thursday where we were as a community. We would make that call Thursday, Friday, on Monday we would start. So we need to make sure the parents understand just how quickly that could happen if they've made arrangements. So we'll be sharing that calendar. The calendar for the year is done. So it wouldn't matter what day that happened, parents would know exactly where we were and where we were going. So stay tuned as we get more information on the technology. We'll let you know more about practicing that area of our schedule. But I just want everybody to know tier 2 and tier 3 they're ready to go. So again, hopefully we won't have to be using them. Homecoming, obviously this is a big hot button topic with social distancing and all that stuff. How do you hold school dance, right? How do you hold a dance? But just like our senior night, we want to make sure that we honor our kids and our traditions. So we are still working on, none of this is set in stone. The one thing I will tell you is homecoming date has been moved. Homecoming has been moved back to October 2nd. And we are working in conjunction with the kids to plan an event for that weekend. We'll still have all of our traditional homecoming voting and all that type of stuff will still take place. We will not be doing a dance, but we will be doing something to honor that tradition and give the kids an opportunity for I never want to use the word safe, but a socially distanced event that they have something to remember for that event. So stay tuned, we'll give you more information, but we are working with the kids. Mr. Rook's working with the kids on getting that all planned out, so stay tuned.
Dancing socially distanced now?
No. Next time we have a school dance, if we ever get back there, I'll invite you. It's definitely not socially distanced.
Okay.
Definitely. I just mentioned a few minutes ago that we did receive confirmation. We received $78,000 from the Broadband Ohio Connectivity Grant. We had asked for, I believe it was 129. There were enough districts across the state of Ohio that they prorated what people were asking for. That $78,000 money must be spent on equipment that provides Wi-Fi connectivity to students. So we are in the process. We had originally asked for 100 laptops, 60 iPads, and I believe 60 hotspots for the district. Obviously, with us receiving less money than we had asked, those numbers are going to drop down, but that's the equipment that we'll be looking for. And all of that money has to be spent prior to December 31st. So we are in the process of trying to find a company, and that's the hard thing. Nobody has technology. You just can't get it, everything's backward. So we're working with companies now to see who can honor that. Stay tuned, we'll keep you posted as that happens as well. I also want to just encourage parents. I've been doing this all along, and parents have been great about this. If you have questions, if you have concerns, if you have issues, the best thing you can do is call the school district. Call the school district, reach out to the administrative team. We're available by phone, we're available by email. We'll get back to you and we'll try and answer your questions. It's the best thing, and parents have been pretty good about this over the last few weeks about doing that. I just want to encourage that practice to continue. And then one last tentative thing, and some of this is already out there, and our AD will, when everything is confirmed, we'll put the information out. But our Friday, September 25th game against Latonia was an away game. Tentatively, that game is going to be moved to Saturday, the 26th, and the location is going to be moved to Youngstown State University. We're still working out the details. Latonia has a benefactor that is paying for the rental of the university stadium to give our kids a great experience. So that will obviously increase the numbers of tickets that our families will get to go there. It's also going to allow our band and our cheerleaders to be able to go and participate as well. So stay tuned. That's tentative right now. But we are working and in the planning stages of that. As soon as we have absolute confirmation, we'll share that with everybody. All right. Okay, so as promised, I'm going to shut up now. This is a project, the next thing that we're going to discuss is a project we've been working on for about 18 months now. Very timely with the COVID-19 stuff. It's not why we attacked it. We attacked it for providing greater resources for our students and for our community. I'm going to introduce to you the Director of Nursing and School Health Services, Michelle Woolman from Akron Children's Hospital. Just a quick note, you'll be able to find her presentation, an FAQ flyer, and the consent forms to get involved in this program on our district website after tonight's meeting. So Michelle, at that point, I'll turn it over to you. I'm going to shut the lights off for you. So.
Sure. I'm going to come up here. Is that okay if I get behind? I don't want to be behind you, but I can't see.
You can do whatever you gotta
So I'll have to put my glasses on, but I did bring a hard copy. So, like you said, my name is Michelle Wellman, and I'm the director of our program here at Akron Children's Hospital. And so we're going to talk about the program that you mentioned, but I think it's really important that you know exactly what happens in your clinics. So let's go ahead and go through some slides, because we did collect some data on what exactly does the school nurse do and what takes place in your schools. There's a lot of healthcare that's delivered in schools, and the average person doesn't always know that.
Down
Just the arrow up.
down there.
Okay. There we go. And so one of the things that we look at across our service, wherever we are, now we have about 40 districts that we serve at Akron Children's Hospital for schools, and we measure our ability to meet the kids' needs at school and get them back to class and back to learning. And so nationally, school nurses have about a 90% back to class, which means that 90% of the kids that come into the clinic can get their needs met by the school nurse, and then they can get back to class, back to learning as quickly as possible. So you can see the number of visits that we had around 7,500. You can't really go too much by last year because of the closing, but you can see it's about average around 7,500 visits, and we're averaging from the first year about 92 to 91% back to class. So we're doing really well. We're able to meet what the kids need and get them back to class. There's still a percentage of the kids that need to go home. They're sick. They don't belong in school. But most of the kids, we can take care of their needs. We also look at clinic visits by month. We look at them by week, by month. And as we look at our data as it comes in every day and what's happening in our schools, we look for trends. Where are the opportunities for us to improve? So you can see that it typically, in a seasons, flu season, where the visits rise up. But if there's something abnormal where we see like a rise going on, sometimes you can tell that maybe there's a respiratory virus that's going and spreading through. So we try to look at that and look to see, is there any way that we can impact that? Another thing that we look for is by school building. If we see a rise in injuries or things that are happening there, then we'll take a deep dive in there and say, okay, is there something going on in the playground? Is there a way that we need to do some type of intervention, or bring it to the attention of your superintendent and say, hey, I'm not sure what's going on, but we're seeing a rise in this. And then we can take a deep dive into the data and see exactly what we can do to improve. EMS calls. Always looking at EMS calls too, because we want to know what are the kids going to, what is the EMS call to the school for? Is there something that we could have done differently to prevent that? One of the things that we have done, I think I talk about it in the next couple of slides, is in Ohio that they have permission to have stock rescue inhaler for kids who have asthma and they forget their inhaler for school. So we have that policy here in East Palestine, so that if the kids would come and they would have an asthma attack and they forgot their rescue inhaler, we could mitigate from the EMS call and going into the hospital by giving them early access to the medication that they need to open up their airway and they can get back to class, back to learning. That's what we're all about. So on average there, you have a low number of EMS calls. We also look at, is it for who's it for? Is it for visitors to the building? Is there anything trends there? Not really. Last year we had 6 emergency room referrals where the parents actually transported. So we made a call. It wasn't dire where they had to transport. The parents were able to take them on into the emergency room. So this is it's a low number. This isn't anything that I would be alarmed about. This is pretty average. Why do the kids come to the clinic? Again, a lot of people don't really realize how much healthcare is delivered at school. Interesting always is that you look at the number and maybe you can't say it because you're too far away, but what you look at is trends from year to year for sure. Look at the orange, those are illness, we expect that. That's what the orange is the biggest part of the pie. That's what kids are coming to the clinic for. They have some illness symptoms. Interesting always to watch is when you look at injuries outside of school. That really tells you a lot about your student population and that what's going on at home when they don't have access to services. They can say, when you go to school on Monday, go see the nurse about that, whatever happened over the weekend. And so we do watch that, which kind of leads into the discussion where we're talking about with school-based health, and we'll get to that in a minute. But that's really important we'll look at that as things and referrals come into our school-based health. Is that an area that we can intervene? So the things that come at home, they come to school with, and then they go to see the nurse. Dental, we always look at dental as well. As an organization, we're continuing to look at the impact or lack of access to dental services, especially for our youth. Are they able to do preventative dental care and things like that? And how can we impact that as well? Medications. Yeah.
What was the purple area? I can't see. It was the next largest.
Probably injuries at school.
Oh.
Yeah.
It was.
Yep, injuries at school.
Okay.
Fell down in gym class, got hit in the head with the ball, all of those things. Right. Anytime they come into the clinic, we tally and see exactly what's happening. So, yep. Medications administered, that's the number one reason why kids come to the clinic. Could be for medications that they need, like the rescue inhaler, could be for a daily medication, things like that. So medication this is pretty average. The biggest reason that kids come to the clinic is to get their meds. We also look at children with chronic health needs, like diabetes, asthma, seizure disorders, allergies. And is there an opportunity to improve access to care, or can we do a teachable moment with that student or family to improve their disease management? So this is really important to us. One of the biggest reasons that Akron Children's gets into the school health arena is because we know that the kids that we care for in our organization are in your schools. And how can we improve their care? And it's by interacting with them at school. So this is from last year, this is the number of kids with chronic health conditions, and we try to work really closely with those students so that the idea is they're gonna have to self-manage once they get out of school and once they go into college or whatever they're going to do in their life. And so what we can do to improve that chronic disease early on in life really has an impact into adulthood. Healthcare delivered at school. You think about how many touch points that we have as a school nurse with a student with diabetes. You only had 3 students with diabetes, yet we did their blood sugar over 300 times. So imagine 300 interactions in my opportunity to teach them about their diabetes care, about how their blood sugar works, how all this works when they're going to have diabetes the rest of their life. This is really a prime opportunity as a teachable moment where every time the student walks into our clinic and we're able to provide that care. The other thing worth mentioning is this is a lot of healthcare that's being delivered in your schools. And I think it's really important for the community to realize how much of that is being done in the schools, because I don't think that, again, that the average person understands that. Asthma. On average, about 4 to 5 children in a classroom have asthma. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean that we always know about that, which is another really important reason to have a stock rescue inhaler. Sometimes children have asthma and they may report it to the school, they may not. They may have went to the doctor a couple weeks ago and they've had asthma exacerbation and they never reported it. They thought it was fine. The thing about asthma is it's silent. Until you're in real trouble, you really don't know that you have asthma. And so that's why it's something that we really pay attention to with the stock rescue inhaler and to see what's going on with our students with asthma. A lot of the times that there's a misunderstanding between the types of inhaler, asthma can be a little confusing. There's controller medications, there's a rescue inhaler, and how can we help with the family to do some education on what medication is for what? Important to note, 0 EMS calls related to asthma, and that's really good. When you have a stock rescue inhaler, we expect you to have low incidence of EMS calls related to asthma. Why? Because you can intervene early with a rescue inhaler to prevent an ER visit. This is good. Flu vaccination clinic. Boy, we know flu is going to be really important for us to get flu out there to our families this year. So last year you had about 50, which is about the same for the year prior. It's really, it's good to know. And so when we try to look at that, we take a look back and say, well, okay, did it make a difference? Does it make a difference having flu vaccine at school? Well, it absolutely does. Because if you look at those 50 kids that got the flu vaccine last year, the prior year, only 16 of them did. So what does that tell you? If you didn't offer it at school, maybe that's a large number of children who would not have received flu vaccine because of the convenience of offering it at school for families. It's really important. Access to care, so access to flu vaccine, of course, which I mentioned, but also when you think about immunity, when you think about that when you're vaccinating a large group of students, like 50, think about the community's immunity because now you're getting the whole community immunized against vaccine, against flu. So it's a really good thing that you're doing this, and we're really excited to continue it into this year. This year's going to be, it's really important that we get the flu vaccine out because its signs and symptoms are very similar to COVID.
We are tentatively scheduled October 22nd and 23rd for our flu clinic for this year.
Awesome.
We're almost there. Almost.
You'll get there.
finalized.
You'll get there. Yeah, it's good. It's good. I'm glad that you're having that. The other thing that I always mention too, it is cost savings for your community when you offer it at school. And so this slide is really more for your reference. But based on the number of flu vaccines that you give, you can take the median Ohio income, multiply it out in terms of dollars. And so that's really the dollar. So about $5,000 in work time, because you think about as a parent, number one, think about all those kids, 50 of them got it, only 16 had got it the prior year. All those kids lost income of the parents would have to take them out of school. Well, they would lose learning and also miss about 4 hours worth of work time in order to go to a provider, get the vaccine, and miss school. So that's where we came up with that number. So that leads us right into our school-based health center, and that's what we've been talking about since the very beginning, is on the dream list. And in your packet there, you have a one-page flyer about the school-based health. And so this is an additional service. This is not the same thing as the school nurse. So everything that I presented prior is really going to happen regardless of bringing this new service in. But it also is a precursor into where we can better improve outcomes and interact with the students for their health. So what is school-based health? This is Camilla, and actually I believe she's coming out in the next 2 weeks to the district and to really kind of get to know everyone. And she can see students who are referred by the school nurses, by your teachers, by whoever, letting the community know that they need a visit. Could be for a well visit, could be that they're coming to school with some sick symptoms. Now it's a little bit tricky right now with COVID because we know they have COVID symptoms, which is pretty much any ill symptom. We want them to get going home. But if we find opportunity as we move and get a little bit more experienced into living into COVID in school, that there might be some opportunity to do some telehealth visits and things like that. Ear infections and things like that, scrapes, cuts that are infected and things like that are another referral source with the nurse practitioner. So Camilla will be here about once every 6 weeks in the district, and she can see students for well care. Now we know with COVID that A lot of the students, which is our own Akron Children's Hospital patient population, they're not going to the doctor. They're not getting their well care, they're not getting their immunizations, all of the things that they normally would have done over the summer months is not happening. So this is really a benefit to the district and having this service on site in a school environment where where the families feel comfortable sending their children. They're used to it. They're sending them to school. They feel that, look at this, we're 6 feet apart, we're all masked. This is great. This is a safe environment where they can come and access healthcare at a place that's convenient and familiar to them. Telehealth is an additional piece of it. So in addition to Camilla being here once every 6 weeks or so, we actually have some handheld devices. It's called Title Care, where we can do telehealth visits. If you've ever done a telehealth visit as an adult from home, it's kind of like FaceTime, where you pretty much see your provider on FaceTime. The difference with this program is we actually have technology, and I think I have it on the next. Oh, I do have it on there. It's about the size of an iPhone, not that big, where you can actually put it on the child. So your nurse would say, okay, Johnny has an ear pain. Parents, if they wanted to have a visit, they could have the visit. They actually have this handheld device with a scope that goes in the ear, and they can put it in the ear. And then Camilla could be in another school in Northeast Ohio and connect in a private space and be able to look in the child's ear, have a face-to-face conversation, and then call the parents and talk about the care needs of that child. This is different than part of the school day, but it's the convenience of getting that care quickly, accessing it in a place that they're familiar so that they can get their prescription and everything that they need taken care of before they're even picked up from school when they're ill.
Glorified otoscope.
Pardon me?
Glorified otoscope.
It's really cool. I wish I had it here. Have you seen it? Have you seen it?
I have not.
You have it?
I have not.
Okay, we'll make sure that you can see it. It's literally smaller than your iPhone. Holds like this. It has like a tongue depressor so you can see in the mouth. And then on Camilla's screen, which is the nurse practitioner, you can go on our laptop, and it's a close-up of, you can see really well, see the inside of the ear. It also listens to heart sounds, breath sounds. It's a more comprehensive exam than you would if you were doing telehealth at home, where you're literally just having a FaceTime conversation with your provider. So we're really excited about this, and we hope to get some traction on it and learn some things. This is our first year with Title Care, so you're really piloting it along with us. We don't know much about how it's going to go, but we're really excited. The technology is there. Other schools across the nation are using it, like in Philadelphia and Indiana. So we're learning from them as well, and we want to be able to bring that into the school for your students. Okay. That's kind of what it looks like a little bit there. These questions are also on the back side of your flyer, but I think it's really important to distinguish this service is separate from school. It's no different than if you would go to your provider and have a private visit. You're lending us the space to do so, but the care that's provided between the provider, the nurse practitioner, and that student and that family is between them and not the school. The benefit is that the care is being met, the care needs are being met so that the students can be healthy and ready to learn and back to school. So it's a great partnership. We all know that if you don't have your health needs met, it's very difficult to learn. If you have a sore throat or earache, I don't think paying attention in math classes are your priority because your ear pain hurts. So I think it's really important that we are in this partnership with you along the way and to be able to do some of this. And the additional thing is we are offering this to your students that are in the virtual environment as well. And so how do we access them? How do they access care? We're going to be looking at that as well. When it comes to the well visits, when Camilla's here, we can schedule a time where they can come and get their immunizations or any care needs that they have. But it is going to be a challenge this year, but all the things that are required for school, like the immunizations, the screenings, all those health things, it doesn't matter if it's brick and mortar or virtual. And we see it the same way, that when where these kids are, whether you're in virtual school or if you're here, we're going to be able to help them access the health care that they need. So how does the program work? The nurses are generally the one who refers, because they know that this student with asthma keeps coming in, doesn't seem to be maybe doing well, maybe could use an asthma tune-up. What I mean by that is they go and they get their medication evaluated. Is this the right dose? Are you getting, are you using it properly? And so they can make a referral. It's all with the family's consent. Families can choose. If families already have a provider and they're already going to their provider and they're getting all their care needs met, this program is not for them. This program is for the kids who aren't able to go, who maybe have access to care issues. The families aren't able to go. We're trying to meet that underserved population and make it easier for them to access care. Will I be seeing my nurse practitioner every single time? No. Remember, this is a separate, so you're still going to have a school nurse. You're still going to get all that stuff I presented in the beginning. It's going to happen. This is an extension of the school nurse program. How do you know if the visit took place? The nurse practitioner will always call. So even if your family's filled out the consent form, they're like, yeah, I think this is great. I want to sign up. Johnny comes in with the ear pain. We're still going to call because we don't know that maybe, oh yeah, we already know about the ear pain and we have a doctor's appointment scheduled tonight after school. Okay, so you don't need to be seen, but we will call and get a verbal consent prior to the visit in addition to the written consent every visit. And the other thing about that is that we want to get a working phone number to make sure that we can do the after visit call with the nurse practitioner to the family to talk about the after visit summary, what needs to happen, or the prescriptions that need to be picked up and all of that. So that communication will happen with the nurse practitioner and the family. I already mentioned that. Yep, you have to have signed consent in order to be treated. Other benefits, pretty much what I mentioned. Really, it's just that students can stay in school longer, get their health needs met, so then they can be well and be in tip-top shape for learning. And that's pretty much it. I'm open to questions. This is new for many school districts in our area, so like I said, questions are welcome and whatever I can do to answer. Yes?
In your career as a nurse and associated with children's health, have you noticed any significant increases in certain medical conditions in children over a period of time?
Right, yeah, you're gonna age me, but yes. Well, what I've noticed, certainly as the chronic disease, it seems to be more present than when I was in school.
Mm-hmm.
Asthma, diabetes, so we see a lot of that, and I don't know why that is. Maybe we just didn't know about it, that these kids have those chronic health conditions when we were in school, I don't know, but it is not unlikely. Now, you only have 3 students in the district that have type 1 diabetes. I can go to another school and they can have 14 kids in the high school with diabetes. So, I feel like you guys have a nice low number in this community, but it is not, I've seen a lot. Yeah, I've seen a lot of that.
Allergies?
Allergies? It depends, yeah. You could say, there's seasonal allergies, which a lot of us have, and with the Claritin and Zyrtec, but when you're talking about life-threatening allergies is what we're really referring to, and those are the kids that have the EpiPens and things like that. If they get bee sting or peanut allergies and things like that, yeah, we seem to see a lot more of that than 20 years ago.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When I was young, we never heard of peanut allergies. People ate peanuts and, I'm not saying they didn't get sick, but
Yeah.
it may not have been associated with peanuts. I don't ever remember that being.
Right. Yeah.
And now it is.
Yeah, and there is some literature out there that talks about that. We have definitely, I don't know why. Is it what we're eating? Is it our environment? Is it a combination of a lot of things? But yeah, you are seeing that.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Michelle.
You're welcome.
So we're really excited about the idea that, and again, we started this conversation about 18 months ago.
We did, yeah.
But the ability to provide additional health care for our students, especially those in this lower socioeconomic environment where they don't necessarily get the access that they need. We can take a look at attendance data, and Michelle's 100% correct. those kids that aren't getting their needs met they're just not coming to school. And we have the attendance data to support those things. So we're a little bit behind here, kind of where we wanted to be at this point because of COVID-19.
Yeah.
But we are getting started. We are going to get this up and get it running this year for our kids. And stay tuned. We'll keep you posted as things get moving here. So, but Michelle, thank you very much. Our relationship with Akron Children's Hospital has just been phenomenal. So
Great. And
thanks.
and hopefully I can come back next year and report out what we actually saw in our center. I think that would be really interesting.
Perfect.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next up is treasurer's items.
The minutes from the August 3rd, 2020 meeting of the Board of Education are enclosed. A resolution is needed to approve the minutes.
I'll make a motion.
Second?
Any discussion? Call the roll, please.
Mr. Ginder,
Yes.
Mr. Moore,
Yes.
Mrs. Andre,
Yes.
Mr. Lambert,
Yes.
Mr. Novak.
Yes.
A resolution is needed approving the financial report for the months of July and August 2020.
Make a motion.
I'll second.
Any discussion?
Yeah, Rick, I have just a couple of questions. We
Sure.
seem to spend a lot of money on Johnson Controls. What can you,
That's the project we're doing where we redid the heating and
right,
air conditioning controls.
right.
And then once they finish that, they come back and once everything was talking to each other, at the end point where the controls were broke, like maybe in the classroom, like there was an actuator or something that was wrong, they have to replace them. And that's part of that, yes.
It's been going on for a long time. Is there any point where it's gonna level out?
They're actually done now and we're done with our contract and all that. So,
Okay.
yes.
I had another question, Equiparts. I don't want to put you on the spot, can't remember, that's okay.
It's the drinking fountains for, and all the new
It's all the
bottle stations.
Okay.
We took every water fountain in the district, shut them all down,
Right.
locked them all down, and then replaced at every location. Some locations we have 2 water fountains. Where we have 2, we only put 1 of these in, but we put in bottle filling stations to fill water bottles for our students
Mhm.
to keep them hydrated. It was one of the big COVID-19 things. Obviously, we were shutting down because of the congregate use and the spread of germ. But so we've replaced that. So we've done it in every building, on every floor, anywhere there was a water fountain. There's at least 1 drinking station, and some where they're high traffic areas, we put in 2 drinking stations. So that's what that was.
And there was some faucets for sinks too, that didn't work, and we replaced faucets
Oh, okay.
for washing your
Yeah,
hands.
this summer, we also made sure that every district, every faucet, every sink in the district, due to having, sanitary issues, washing hands, we went back and made sure that every sink in the
Everything
entire district is functional. And is working even in places where we weren't necessarily even using the places we've now opened up, so we can increase our ability to wash hands and those types of things, so.
And one more, Total ID Solutions.
That's the monitors where you walk in and it checks your temperature.
Oh, okay.
I think we bought 10 of those.
We purchased 10 of those. Yeah, we purchased 10 of those. There's 2 to 3 at each building. We're also utilizing those not only for arrival, dismissal, and any event going on, we're also using it at the athletic facilities as well.
Okay, thank you.
Mrs. Andre,
Yes.
Mr. Novak,
Yes.
Mr. Ginder,
Yes.
Mr. Lambert,
Yes.
Mr. Moore.
Yes.
A resolution is needed to approve the following new funds. Broadband Ohio Connectivity Grant, $78,623.30. Rural and Small Town Schools, $58,832.15. And the ESSER Grant, $325,566.63.
I'll second.
Other than the broadband, which I believe has to be spent by December 31st.
That's correct.
Will any of those other 2 grants have any effect whatsoever on our budget or on our spending or on our?
The ESSER grant, yes, we're paying wages out of that fund. And the rural and small towns, it was dead for startup of school, so we've spent that way past that. That's part of what we paid for the Equiparts and all that kind of stuff like that to start up school.
Right, okay, thank you.
Any other discussion? Call the roll, please.
Mr. Ginder,
Yes.
Mrs. Andre,
Yes.
Mr. Lambert,
Yes.
Mr. Moore,
Yes.
Mr. Novak.
Yes.
A resolution is needed to approve the donation of health safety kits from the True Value Foundation to help schools open. Ours were donated through the local Fuller's True Value. The kits included hand sanitizer, N95 masks, and hand soap.
I'll make a motion.
I'll second.
Any discussion?
How many kids?
I'm not sure. They were picked up and I don't even,
Yeah, you know what, I'm not sure how many there were.
I'm not sure how many kits
They
were.
were donated, there were only 700 of these donated across the country.
Wow.
And we received one of them through our local store. I'm trying to remember how many were down there. These were for staff, they weren't for students. I want to say we were in the 45 to 50 range.
Okay.
Call the roll, please.
Mr. Lambert,
Yes.
Mr. Novak,
Yes.
Mrs. Andre,
Yes.
Mr. Ginder,
Yes.
Mr. Moore.
Yes.
A resolution is needed to approve a donation of reusable water bottles for the entire district at a cost of $3,000 by CSI Environmental. They will be handed out to staff and students and for the newly installed bottle filling stations.
I'll make a motion.
Second.
Any discussion? Call the roll, please.
Mr. Novak,
Yes.
Mr. Moore,
Yes.
Mrs. Andre,
Yes.
Mr. Ginder,
Yes.
Mr. Lambert.
Yes.
A resolution is needed to approve the transfer from general fund to the textbook and instructional material fund of $50,000.
I'll make a motion.
I'll second.
Any discussion? Call the roll, please.
Mr. Ginder,
Yes.
Mrs. Andre,
Yes.
Mr. Lambert,
Yes.
Mr. Moore,
Yes.
Mr. Novak.
Yes.
And lastly, a resolution is needed to approve the following transportation contracts. Brenda and Eric Stewart, Heartland Christian, 2 children. Steve and Karen Sirota, Heartland Christian, 1 child. Rachel Barrow, Heartland Christian, 2 children. Sarah and Matthew Day, Heartland Christian, 2 children. Craig and Rachel Farrell, Heartland Christian, 2 children. And Angela Hupp, Heartland Christian, 1 child.
I'll make a motion.
I'll second.
Any discussion? Call the roll, please.
Mr. Moore,
Yes.
Mrs. Andre,
Yes.
Mr. Ginder,
Yes.
Mr. Lambert,
Yes.
Mr. Novak.
Yes.
That's all I have.
Superintendent's recommendation.
Get the right pile of papers. It is a recommendation of the superintendent of schools that the Board of Education approve the retirement of the following employee. Deb Mattson, high school English teacher, effective October 31st, 2020.
Make a motion.
Second.
Any discussion? Call the roll, please.
Mr. Moore,
Yes.
Mr. Novak,
Yes.
Mrs. Andre,
Yes.
Mr. Ginder,
Yes.
Mr. Lambert.
Yes.
It is the recommendation of the superintendent of schools that the Board of Education approve the following classified employees beginning the 2020-21 school year, pending background checks and other board-approved certifications.
Make a motion.
Second.
Any discussion? Call the roll, please.
Mr. Lambert,
Yes.
Mr. Moore,
Yes.
Mrs. Andre,
Yes.
Mr. Ginder,
Yes.
Mr. Novak.
Yes.
It is the recommendation of the superintendent of schools that the Board of Education approve the following as long-term substitutes pending background checks and board-approved certifications. Lisa Kelso, middle school math, Emily Henderson, elementary music.
I'll make a motion.
I'll second.
Any discussion?
Yeah, how are we with subs, Chris?
So as we discussed earlier, we're still working on the perm sub situation.
Right.
We do have 4 currently. We have 2 at the elementary school, 1 at the middle school, 1 at the high school. We're working with Rachel Wixie and Associates to fill those other 2 positions, so we have 2 in each building. As far as filling beyond those 6 positions, Honestly, and James, you might be able to speak to this. I know that we've already had 3 or 4 positions unfilled this year because there just are not a lot of subs out there, and we aren't super comfortable with bringing people in from the outside. So we're trying to juggle that right this minute. We're doing a lot of changing, like a lot of our meetings that we would have during the day, we're now holding after school, so that we're not trying to even bring subs into the building.
Right.
Obviously, illness with staff, it is what it is, and we're dealing with that. We're also working with Rachel Wixie, who's the company that we do our subs through, to try and bring some more bodies in. So that's a work in progress for sure. But right now, our permanent subs have been, they've been invaluable here just to help fill in and pick up, some of these positions that have been open. So.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Ginder,
Yes.
Mrs. Andre,
Yes.
Mr. Lambert,
Yes.
Mr. Moore,
Yes.
Mr. Novak.
Yes.
It is the recommendation of the superintendent of schools that the Board of Education approve the employment of the following as substitutes pending background checks and board-approved certifications.
Make motion.
A second. Any discussion? Please call the roll.
Mrs. Andre,
Yes.
Mr. Lambert,
Yes.
Mr. Ginder,
Yes.
Mr. Moore,
Yes.
Mr. Novak.
Yes.
It is a recommendation of the superintendent of schools that the Board of Education approve the employment of the following supplemental contract pending background check and board-approved certification. Will Franklin as high school girls basketball coach, and Jordan Baker, high school boys basketball assistant coach at the freshman level. And I just want to point out, Jordan Baker is one of the new teachers that we just hired for middle school math, already stepped up to fill one of our coaching positions. So just want to point that out.
I'll second.
Any discussion? Call the roll, please.
Mr. Moore,
Yes.
Mr. Novak,
Yes.
Mrs. Andre,
Yes.
Mr. Ginder,
Yes.
Mr. Lambert.
Yes.
Whereas the East Palestine City School District Board of Education has posted these positions as being available to employees of the district who hold educator license certificates, and no such employee, meeting all the board's qualifications, has applied for, been offered, and accepted such positions. Whereas the East Palestine City School District has advertised such positions as being available to licensed certificated individuals not employed by the district, and no such individual meeting all the board's qualifications has applied for, been offered, and accepted such positions. Now therefore be it resolved that it is the recommendation of the superintendent of schools that the persons listed be employed for the specific supplemental positions for the 2020-21 school year, pending BCI, FBI background checks, and other conditions of employment determined by law or board policy. William Stanton, high school boys basketball coach. William Ginder, high school boys basketball assistant coach, JV. Jeremy McElroy, middle school boys basketball coach, 8th grade. Andy Pink, middle school boys basketball coach, 7th grade. Jill Baird, high school girls basketball assistant coach, JV. And Kevin McKinstry, middle school girls basketball coach, 8th grade.
I'll make a motion.
A second. Any discussion? Call the roll, please.
Mr. Novak,
Yes.
Mr. Lambert,
Yes.
Mrs. Andre,
Yes.
Mr. Ginder,
Stay.
Mr. Moore,
Yes.
It is the recommendation of the superintendent of schools that the Board of Education approve the following administrative stipends. Janice Cartwright, EMIS duties, $7,500, and Mary Beth DeCello, guidance duties, $5,000.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
Any discussion? Call the roll, please.
Mr. Novak,
Yes.
Mrs. Andre,
Yes.
Mr. Ginder,
Yes.
Mr. Lambert,
Yes.
Mr. Moore.
Yes.
It is a recommendation of the superintendent of schools that the Board of Education approve parental leave of absence for the following employee without pay. Mallory Thompson, middle school math teacher, 2020-21 school year.
I'll second.
Any discussion? Call the roll, please.
Mr. Ginder,
Yes.
Mr. Moore,
Yes.
Mrs. Andre,
Yes.
Mr. Lambert,
Yes.
Mr. Novak?
Yes.
It is a recommendation of the superintendent of schools that the Board of Education approve the following volunteers for the 2020-21 school year, pending background checks and other board-approved certifications. Hal Patterson, high school boys basketball. Austin Barone, high school boys basketball.
I'll make a motion.
I'll second. Any discussion? Call the roll, please.
Mr. Moore?
Yes.
Mr. Lambert?
Yes.
Mrs. Andre?
Yes.
Mr. Ginder?
Yes.
Mr. Novak?
Yes.
It is a recommendation of the superintendent of schools that the Board of Education approve the following employee, pending background check and board-approved certification. Nancy Reeves, Title I, part-time teacher.
Make a motion.
Second.
Any discussion? Call the roll, please.
Mrs. Andre?
Yes.
Mr. Novak?
Yes.
Mr. Ginder?
Yes.
Mr. Lambert?
Yes.
Mr. Moore?
Yes.
It is a recommendation of the superintendent of schools that the Board of Education approve the following students as open enrollment students for the 2020-21 school year.
I'll make a motion.
I'll second.
Any discussion? Are any of these new students, or they all?
Two of them are. Yeah, two of them are. And Brian, I forgot to make that adjustment. The next to the last one down there, that first name should be Cole and not Chris. C-O-L-E should be Cole. So Brian pointed that out to me last Friday, and I forgot to make the change. So
Is that rated?
yes.
Thank you.
Yeah, but Doug, two of those are new.
Call the roll, please.
Mr. Moore?
Yes.
Mr. Novak?
Yes.
Mrs. Andre?
Yes.
Mr. Ginder?
Yes.
Mr. Lambert?
Yes.
It is a recommendation of the superintendent of schools that the Board of Education approve the agreement with Columbiana County Family and Children First Council for $450 as attached.
I'll make a motion.
I'll second.
Any discussion?
The numbers on the back, are we gonna be including that, or is that something different?
Which one is that?
on that page?
Yes, we would be, yes.
General number, is that it?
Yes.
Okay.
Correct.
Call the roll, please.
Mr. Ginder?
Yes.
Mr. Moore?
Yes.
Mrs. Andre?
Yes.
Mr. Lambert?
Yes.
Mr. Novak?
Yes.
It is a recommendation of the superintendent of schools that the Board of Education approve the 5-year forecast deficit elimination plan as attached.
I'll make a motion.
A second. Any discussion?
Yeah, I want to thank Rick and Chris for all the work they put into this. I know this is but 2 or 3 years project, right? I mean,
It has, and we were kind of hopeful. If you'd asked us this, 8, 9 months ago, Rick, we would have thought we weren't doing it.
Yeah.
We thought we got out and and then with all the COVID-19 and the budget cuts and we found ourselves again in a position where we were facing a deficit. So again, it caused us to go back and tear the budget apart and figure out how to get back into the black, which that's what the plan is that sits in front of you. So
so thanks for all the work you put into it, you guys.
Call the roll, please.
Mrs. Andre?
Yes.
Mr. Lambert?
Yes.
Mr. Ginder?
Yes.
Mr. Moore?
Yes.
Mr. Novak?
Yes.
it is a recommendation of the superintendent of schools that the Board of Education approve the memorandum of understanding between East Palestine Schools and Site Care Incorporated as attached.
I'll second.
Any discussion?
Yeah, the question, and how are these services delivered? In school or?
They are full. So recommendations are made here in school. Parents fill out the information, intakes are done by employees of Site Care. We do provide them, we do have, we're in the process of changing. The employee that we had is no longer with them. We've got a new one that just started with us actually on Friday. And he's only temporary as they hire someone new. But those referrals are made, and then they do services outside of the school district with the family, but they also see kids here within the building. So
Thank you.
Call the roll, please.
Mr. Ginder?
Yes.
Mrs. Andre?
Yes.
Mr. Lambert?
Yes.
Mr. Moore?
Abstain.
Mr. Novak?
Yes.
It is a recommendation of the superintendent of schools that the Board of Education approve the agreement between the East Palestine City School District and Columbiana County Board of Developmental Disabilities as attached.
I'll second.
Any discussion?
Yeah, this compensation on the second page, Chris, what is that? No cost to us.
Which one are we?
Second page, page 2 of compensation, second one, you're talking about Akron, right?
No, we're not in Akron yet.
Oh, I'm sorry.
This is developmental disabilities.
Yeah, okay. I don't know. Thank you.
Any other discussion? Call the roll, please.
Mr. Ginder?
Yes.
Mr. Moore?
Yes.
Mrs. Andre?
Yes.
Mr. Lambert?
Yes.
Mr. Novak?
Yes.
Okay. It is the recommendation of the superintendent of schools that the Board of Education approve the memorandum of understanding between East Palestine City School District and the Children's Hospital Medical Center of Akron as attached.
Make a motion.
I'll second.
Any discussion?
Yeah.
I bet Ron has a question.
Compensation
Let me see here.
doesn't cost us anything, from what it said. Akron Children's Sports Program, no cost to the district.
It's just a matter of saying that we have, with our contract with them, it just means that there will be no additional fees or charges to Akron Children's.
Okay.
Any of the insurance issues, any of that type of stuff is all handled by them.
Okay. Do Medicare, Medicaid.
Okay.
Anyone else? Call the roll, please.
Mr. Lambert?
Yes.
Mrs. Andre?
Yes.
Mr. Ginder?
Yes.
Mr. Moore?
Yes.
Mr. Novak?
Yes.
It is a recommendation of the superintendent of schools that the Board of Education approve the agreement between East Palestine City School District and Mahoning County Educational Service Center as attached.
I'll make a motion.
I'll second. Any discussion?
So we're a cool $700,000?
What's that?
Is that where we are, 7?
Yeah.
I have
It
no
comes
idea.
out of
I
our
have to look at
foundation,
that.
yes.
Could that change?
Has it
Could there be
changed?
Adjustments in that, could that change?
It could change, yes. Usually only changes if we ask them because of additional services, because they give us an update halfway through the year, how much, because this is an estimate of
Right.
what the services will be. So if it's high or low, we can adjust either way.
Okay.
And then at the end of the year, they do a true up, they call it, where they send you how many days you used and if you owe or if you don't owe.
Which is the final cost.
Yes.
Anyone else? Call the roll, please.
Mr. Moore,
Yes.
Mr. Ginder,
Yes.
Mrs. Andre,
Yes.
Mr. Lambert,
Yes.
Mr. Novak.
Yes.
I missed one on that page. All right. It is a recommendation of the superintendent of schools that the Board of Education approve the attached board policies.
I'll make a motion.
A second.
Any discussion? Call the roll, please.
Mrs. Andre,
Yes.
Mr. Novak,
Yes.
Mr. Ginder,
Yes.
Mr. Lambert,
Yes.
Mr. Moore.
Yes.
I think that's it.
Any old or new business to discuss? It's set time and date of next meeting, that should be October 5th, 6 PM here at the Media Center. I have a motion to adjourn.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Depends on